Welcome back. It's time for our book review segment. There's a new book challenging South Africa to think differently about its future. So in the bottom line, Chartered accountant Yusuf Bodiat argues that the country must be run like a company in crisis, not for profit, but with discipline, urgency and measurable results. And so as government prepares its budget following SONA 2026, we ask, or he asks in fact, what would a CFO do differently? So in studio this morning, the author joins us to unpack his latest offering. Yusuf, good morning and thank you.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
So I said I enjoyed the patriotism, the optimism as well, given where we are. But you have the view that we obviously have to look at South Africa as a company in crisis mode. So tell us about the context this is all happening and what made you reach that level of urgency?
So the idea has been in many of our minds for many years. There's different challenges that we have in the country. And I found that the challenge is we have isolated discussions. We speak about the education crisis or unemployment or the water issues that we have in Joburg.
Sure.
But all of those are isolated discussions, either in the boardroom or on news or on the weekend.
Yeah.
And when the Minister of Finance presented the speech, the budget speech in February 2025, that eventually happened a few weeks and months later, I wrote an article unpacking how a CFO would consider looking at the finances of the country, which then sparked into the book, because I felt that the article didn't do justice to all the ideas that could have been explained. Sure. And it's not a book to complain about the challenges we have. It diagnoses the problem, it looks at the challenges, but more importantly, looks at what works, what doesn't work, whether it's locally or international, and then comes up with a few solutions to help us move forward.
Also, that it's not a political manifesto book, because, I mean, it's also sensitive times at this point. It's a playbook, it's for turnaround. Tell us how intentional are you also about that, given, you know, the reality on the ground in this year?
Yeah, so extremely sensitive to not making it a political book. It's a finance book, but a playbook, like you say. Yeah. And it looks at different levers, as I call it, or different aspects of the country and the fiscus, trying to move forward in the same way as a board or shareholders would look at a company and take that company forward.
Your own household, if South Africa Inc. was your own household, what would you tackle first? Because, I mean, you look at the five tiers as well, but talk to us about how you would approach this. Because let's say you've got the finance minister's ear at this point. We're about 2 weeks away from the budget speech as well. Yes. Where should we be rearranging, assisting? You also, I like how you say the citizens should be the shareholders. That also breeds the notion of accountability. You're speaking about tax bases as well. Who should be paying what? Where should we be recouping as well? Break that down for us as well.
Yeah, thank you. That's a loaded question, actually. Yeah. So firstly, we need to diagnose the problem. And there's many areas where we waste money in the country. And I'm not speaking about only fruitless and wasteful expenditure, where we spend money with the right intentions but not getting the right outcome. So that's the first part. We then move on to say, how do we restore fiscal credibility in the country? Because we need to be trusted for others to invest in us, whether it's South Africans investing in the country or offshore investment coming in. We look at the cash flows. How do we manage our cash flow better so that we have sufficient funds at month end in order to pay our debt? And more than that, it looks at how do we steer this ship forward in the long term. It's not a short-term playbook. It doesn't look at the next election cycle or the next year from this budget speech, which happens in 10 days' time from today, up until the next budget speech. It looks at South Africa for the next 10, 15, even 20 years with long-term goals.
Because I'm trying to follow up from what was echoed in the SONA speech. And as we obviously play with the imaginary crystal ball come the budget speech as well, but we're looking at the notions of economic reform, to your point, the water crisis, some of the other issues that we're facing as well. Tell us how we should be approaching this at this point, because it's now not just about the promises, right? It's actually about the practical implementation. Where do we begin?
So it's a balance or a combination between short-term wins, so fixing the water crisis. I know it sounds easy, but looking at it quite aggressively and fixing it immediately, because water is a basic human right for all of us, but also looking at the long-term goals at the same time. So, for example, make sure that service delivery is done immediately where we can. If a traffic light is out, fix it up tomorrow, not in a few weeks' time. But at the same time, at the back of our mind, looking at something like education, unemployment, and youth unemployment, and planning for when those 5- and 6-year-olds who are starting school this year actually reach the workforce in 20 years' time.
Well, you speak about Smart Start and early education as well. That's a big component that you also say will lay a solid foundation. Tell us a little bit more about that vision as well. If we start to implement some of these reforms and what you advocate, what will we look like as a country in 5 years' time, let's say?
So Smart Start is an amazing ECD, Early Childhood Development Network system that focuses on ECD around the country. I've partnered with them with a commitment to donate 10 Rand for every book sold to Smart Start, but more than that is to create awareness and advocacy for Smart Start and the ECD system. Because the ECD kids who are starting school this year are our future generations that will be looking after us in the future. It's not a 5-year plan. It's a 25-year plan for those ones specifically.
Yeah. I wonder when you speak to people, I mean, it was launched on the 4th of February as well. So when we start to see the critique come through, some people of the view that it's hard to run a country like a company. How do you respond to notions like that? But also, what have been some of the, how has it been received as well, given the sensitive time?
Yeah, so the reception's been exceptionally well, better than I have expected.
Okay.
We launched it at Exclusive Books in Sandton on the 4th of February. It made it to the #1 list in the Sandton store for the non-fiction books. And I'm very excited that it's made its way to the Exclusive Books recommends list for March, for next month.
Yeah.
So the reception's been good. The critique has not been that bad. However, people are always asking the question, what if nothing changes? What if the book is a story book, a fiction book, rather than a non-fiction book? I believe the book gives hope that we can make things better. And I believe that if we do the right things at the right time, things can change and can improve.
So let's get into that, because now you're speaking on the issue of leadership as well. And I know the forward was by Francois Pina, so
Yes.
95. We saw that Unity Project. That's part of safeguarding democratic institutions as well. So talk to us about political will, but the leadership aspect that comes, how we need to safeguard against that or with that. We're not short of the brain power, clearly, to implement this. Action and will has been lacking.
So the reason I asked Francois Pina, what an amazing leader, to write the foreword for my book is because many business books have business leaders who write the forewords. But I wanted a more holistic leader to write the foreword, and he was willing and able to write the foreword for me. And the reason I do that is because I have a specific chapter in the book that speaks about, which I call winning like the Springboks. And it's not about sport. It's about the way in which a team in 1995 was not meant to win the World Cup, by no means on paper. Technically, we weren't supposed to win.
Sure.
We did win for all the right reasons, but not because of what happened on the field, but what happened off the field because of our leadership. And so there are many lessons in that chapter specifically, and other chapters that we can use from sports and other countries and other institutions to take our country forward.
Okay, so Yusuf, we're edging, 10 days away from that budget speech. You penned thoughts to paper, made serve as a conversation starter, that bold plan as you propose it to look at South Africa's economy and that turnaround strategy. Yusuf Bodiat, author, chartered accountant, registered director, just joining us to chat about his offering, The Bottom Line. The timing of it apt. You also saw the reception since its launch, and we're looking forward to see how this also adds to the conversation for SA Inc. at large. So we'll leave that conversation there. Let's return with more after the stay tuned.